Hey guys, we're back with the notes for 10.6. We have last section of notes here. 2 videos, we're going to do them from page 22 and then from page 24 is going to be on a separate video. All right, so starting with this, we're going to condense our logs, rewrite using exponential equations, and then actually solve it. Okay, you will have to evaluate whether or not your answers make sense. You will have those extraneous problems. We'll talk about those in just a second. Okay. All right, first thing I need you to know is that I wrote out the first 2 problems. If you want to pause and copy that down so you can focus on listening, we can do that. Perfect. Okay, so problem 1. First thing I did was condense it. So I noticed that the logs had an x and a 5 that were adding, which means I can put them back together with multiplication. Okay, that is my first step, the pink. Second step is going to be to rewrite it as exponential using the loop-de-loop. So remember, if there's no base, that's like saying base 10. So I would say 10 to the first power equals 5x. And that's where my blue equation came from. 10 to the first power equals 5x. From there, I would apply the exponent. 10 to the first power is just 10. Divide both sides by 5 gives me 2. This is my solution. Now, I could plug that back in to make sure that it works. You could type in your calculator log of 2 plus log of 5. You should get 1. That's how you know it's the right answer. Okay, let's talk about number 2. Okay, I condensed it. So I noticed that they're both log base 5. The x and the other x are subtracting, which means I write it as division. And the 3 belongs to the first x as his exponent. Okay, so that's where my first equation came from. My second pink equation came because I realized that x to the third divided by an x means that I could subtract my exponent. So I ended up with an x squared there. Now I'm going to move into the exponential format. So 5 to the second power equals x squared. And that's where I got this equation up here. I went ahead and simplified it. 5 squared is 25. And then when I was ready to solve, I needed to square root both sides. That's how I get x equals. Remember, when you square root something, you have a plus or a minus option. But if I think about plugging that back in here, think about if you wrote 3 log base 5 of a negative 5. Would you be able to do that? No, it's going to come out as undefined. Even if I plugged it in over here, I cannot take the log of a negative number. This comes out to be undefined, which means that the only actual answer I have is the positive 5. Okay, so make sure. You could have a negative x, but if when you plug it back in, it makes the whole parenthesis negative, that's a no. Okay, so for instance, if I'm looking down here, if this x was 7, that would still be fine. Same thing here. If this x was like a negative 1, I could take log of 0, no worries, but I want to make sure that I cannot ever end up with like a negative 3 plus 1. That would give me a negative parenthesis, and I'm not allowed to have that. Okay. All right, let's move into number 3. So first thing I do is condense. So log base 3, they're subtraction. So I'm going to go x over 4, it's division. I'm going to rewrite with exponential. So 3 squared is equal to x over 4. 3 squared gives me 9. X divided by 4 means I need to multiply both sides by 4. And in this case, my x is 36. Oops. That's my final answer. There's no negatives, no problems on this one. All the way done. Let's look at number 4. All right, number 4, I'm going to condense it. So I have log base 7. I'm looking at an addition problem, which means I'm going to multiply these back together. X plus 1 and x minus 5. When I multiply them, remember I will need to FOIL. So when I switch to my exponential, 7 to the first power equals this parenthesis. So 7 to the first power, I'm going to go ahead and FOIL it together. X squared minus 4x minus 5. To solve a quadratic, I have to make it equal 0. So x squared minus 4x minus 12. Factor it out. I have an x minus 6 and an x plus 2. That gives me 2 separate answers. So my 2 answers are going to be x is a negative 2 or x is a positive 6. If I plugged in a negative 2, negative 2 minus 5 would give me a negative 7. I am not allowed to do that. Same thing over here. Negative 2 plus 1 would give me a negative 1. I'm not allowed to do that. So my only answer on this problem is x equals 6. Okay. If you need to pause anything on this top section, go ahead and copy that down. Otherwise, we're moving to the bottom. All right, down here on the bottom, we are going to do the same thing. We're going to condense, but in this section, you're going to end up with a log of the same base on both sides of the equal sign. And all you are going to do is take the parenthesis part, or take what you were taking the log of, and set them equal to each other. So for instance, let's look at number 1. Number 1, I put the left side back together. So this whole guy, the 4 and the 3 were adding, which means that they're going to multiply back together in the log. The 2 was subtracting away, which means he's a division problem. On the right-hand side, there's nothing to put together. It's just log base 7 of x. Once you notice that they are both log base 7, I can say the parenthesis yellow piece is equal to the yellow piece on the right-hand side. Let's simplify. 4 times 3 is 12. Divided by 2 is 6. So 6 equals x. There's nothing left to solve. That's a full problem right here. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Right underneath it, we're going to do the same thing. I notice subtraction, which means I'm going to rewrite this as division. So log base 6 of x divided by x minus 1. Again, subtraction changes to division, is equal to log base 6 of 3. Now, the yellow pieces, or your parenthesis pieces, are going to come out equal to each other because they are both log base 6. So we're going to say x over x minus 1 is equal to 3. I need to multiply both sides by x minus 1. These cancel, so we have x equals 3x minus 3 if I distribute it back together. Subtract the x over here gives me 2x. Add the 3 over here gives me 3. And my final answer, if I can make this fit on one page, is going to give me x equals 3 over 2. Final answer. All right, if you need to pause that, copy it down, go ahead. We have one more problem on this video. All right, over here for number 2. First thing I'm going to do is condense what's on the right side because the left side is just plain, log base 5 of x. All right, I noticed that this is going to be the exponent of this guy. So if I'm doing log base 5, remember a 1/2 is the same as a square root. So you could say square root of 9 or 9 raised to the 1/2, same thing. The plus means that I'm going to multiply it by the second part, which is the x minus 1. Okay. All right, now that I have it simplified, my yellow pieces or my parentheses are going to be set equal. I have x equals, square root of 9 is 3. I'm going to go ahead and just write 3. And x minus 1. This answer is going to come out looking exactly like the one we just did. So x equals 3x minus 3. Subtract the x over. Add the 3 over. And then divide. You get the exact same answer. It was just set up in a different way. So if you need to pause, copy anything on the bottom, go ahead. Otherwise, we're ready to jump to page 24, and we're going to watch the second video.